So we have a few people right now. Let me get everything set up real quick, and then we'll jump on into what we got lined up for you guys tonight. Get everything set up real quick. What's going on, Varson? 188. It's been a while since I've heard from you. Good to see you. So I see we've got a couple people online right now. Hopefully that'll pick up here over the next couple minutes as we really dive into this this Tuesday night live chat. As I promised, the goal is to try to get this going every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And we're going to try to stay as consistent as we can on that. I can't promise that's going to happen all the time because despite what some people may tell you, you don't have a whole lot of free time in college, believe it or not. It's been a very hectic week, and it's only a Tuesday. So we're trying to stay on top of everything and try to stay consistent, getting this coming out Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And we will be putting all out the times of that on Twitter, so you guys know when the chat's going to start. Or if you don't follow us on Twitter, hopefully you'll have the notifications on so you can see it when we decide to go live on those days. And most times what we're going to try to do is we're going to leave this out for discussion. I see we've already got quite a bit of comments already, most of them from our good friend Varson188. But, leave this up for discussion. Leave you guys the opportunity to give us topics and anything you guys want to talk about. I usually have a list of things I want to get to, and if we don't get to it, that's totally fine because I want to hear from you guys. That's the point of these live chats and these live streams are to do, interaction with you guys, the fans, and the supporters of the Gridiron Expert that have been there and made it what it is today. So I see we got about 5 people right now, and hopefully we can continue to grow. For those of you that are watching, help us out. Spread the word through Twitter, through Instagram, through Snapchat, through YouTube, through anything else. Get the word out there and help bring in a bunch of viewers to these live streams because I do want to stay consistent with this and try to bump this up and make this kind of a regular thing. Because I think this is really going to be good, not just for my channel, but good for everybody else to kind of get some insight and share their thoughts on college football. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. This might be a little bit of a shorter chat, shorter stream. We don't have a whole lot lined up tonight. I do have a couple topics I want to talk about, and of course we'll always refer to the comment section of the chat. If anything's going on there, we will of course address those questions and topics. And Varson, man, on a roll. I appreciate it. We got a bunch of questions here, or just comments. First one he's got, and we'll jump into what I've got here in a second. Just get this going. We've only been going for a couple minutes here. Which team do I think people are overhyping for next season? Well, that's open for interpretation because there's always a lot of teams that people are overhyping, and sometimes those teams do exceed those expectations. Sometimes they fail. I would say a couple teams that people are talking about a lot right now. Of course, Texas. Is Texas really back? That's a great question. They looked great in the Sugar Bowl, had a fantastic finish. Whether or not they're back or not, we're just gonna have to wait and find out. So Texas is one that's getting a lot of hype, but one that I do believe Tom Herman has going the right direction. I wouldn't see this Tom Herman team really taking a step down by any means. Another team staying in the state of Texas, Texas A&M, a team that's getting a lot of hype. Very good and strong finish under Jimbo Fisher, returns a lot of offensive production especially. Could they make a little bit of a run in the SEC? Obviously, they're going to have to go to LSU. I think they do get to host Alabama, so that's big for them. Jimbo's got that team going in the right direction, but will this be the year that they break through for maybe 9 wins, 10 wins, and really compete in the SEC, or will it be a couple years down the road? Another team that we've got on there, Oregon. Oregon, another team that is definitely getting a lot of hype. Strong recruiting class. Justin Herbert comes back. Fairly strong finish. Disappointing. I mean, it was a good bowl win, but it was a disappointing game, winning that game 7-6. So Oregon's getting a lot of hype. Could they win the Pac-12? Could they be a dark horse for the college football playoff? That's another team that I think is getting a lot of hype, and we're just going to wait and see if these teams meet those expectations and if they, can get to that point of, competing at before you can even start considering teams for the college football playoff. You gotta see if they can even win their conference first. Because Oregon's, for example, it's no cakewalk for them. They still got Washington, and yes, Washington lost Myles Gaskin, Jake Browning, but they do bring in Jacob Eason now at quarterback, so they're not going to literally lose that much production. I think they're going to be just fine. So Oregon still has a very tough slate there. Any team in the SEC has a very tough slate. Texas on the rise. You still got Oklahoma, who just got a solid transfer quarterback in Jalen Hurts, despite losing Kyler Murray. So those are maybe my three that I could see being a little overhyped, but have the chance to still, I think, do extremely well this season. I'm not really, like saying, I'm not predicting anything now. That, of course, comes later on in June, but those are some teams to keep our eye on, especially. AI24, Woo Pig Suey, WPS. Arkansas fan, Isaac, good to see you here. Flight Gaming, love the vids, appreciate that. If you want to subscribe, if you haven't already, we'd always appreciate that. For those of you that are watching, if you're a frequent viewer, we appreciate you coming back. If not, if you're new, consider subscribing to the channel. We would appreciate any support we can get. If you want some of the best live streams here on YouTube for college football purposes and football purposes in general, and of course in the season, anyone that has watched our videos can tell you that once summer comes around, once June comes around, it is prediction season all summer long, and it's really taken off and kind of become some of the best predictions on YouTube. 76% over the past 2 years, over 1,000 games predicted. So if you're new here, we appreciate you coming by. Hope you stick around and subscribe to the channel and keep coming back. John Hopkins, will Kentucky have another breakout year? Kentucky loses some big-time starters. Obviously, Benny Snell at the running back, Josh Allen on the defensive side of the ball. But Mark Stoops has that team obviously going in the right direction. The problem with them is, they beat Florida last year in the Swamp, and they get to host them this year in Lexington. That's big for the Wildcats. But you're still going up against a Florida. You're still going up against Georgia, a Tennessee team that is on the rise, a South Carolina team that's mediocre, and a Missouri team that, can't go to a bowl game, but still got a solid quarterback transfer in Kelly Bryant, should still have a prolific offense. We saw some teams some players in that bowl game against Oklahoma State really step up, and Missouri might even have a dangerous rushing attack this coming season, as they were mostly relying on the passing attack led by Drew Lock. So, Kentucky isn't going to. How much more of a breakout can you ask for? Didn't they win 10 games this year? So they're not going to go. There's no way they're going to win more than 10 games again. I would say, Mark Stoops, like I said, has them in the right direction. I would expect them to get back to a bowl game. I'd say anywhere around between 6 to 8 wins. I haven't predicted their schedule yet. Haven't really analyzed Kentucky quite yet, but I would say they're still in prime position and once again making themselves relevant, both in the SEC East and nationally. Let's see. Flight Gaming says, how do I feel about Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State, I'm a big fan of Mike Gundy. Anyone that has watched our videos in the past knows I'm a big fan of their offense, especially. Of course, because that's what Mike Gundy prides himself on. Oklahoma State had a very impressive victory over Missouri in that Liberty Bowl. That was a big-time win for them to close out what was a pretty disappointing year for the Cowboys. But this is the year, that I think they take another step forward. 2 years ago, people were saying that they could potentially be a college football playoff dark horse. They were able to do that with Mason Rudolph, James Washington, the likes of them. Kind of took a step down this year after losing so much production. I think they kind of get back to where they need to be, 8 wins, 9 wins, solid bowl victory, and will want to be a threat in the Big 12. Comic Dude 45, glad to see you again. 157 subs away from 2,000. Let's make it happen. And I can't appreciate that comment more. Can't appreciate it more. I mean, that's what we want. We want 2,000 subs. We were hoping to have that by the end of April before we get into prediction season in June. So I appreciate that comment out there. It all starts with you guys. You guys have gotten us to where we are right now. We just need a little extra help. Need that extra push. Spread the word through social media, to your colleagues, to your friends, to your family. Help us get to 2,000 here very, very soon. We are continuing to grow. So appreciate that comment, Comic Dude 45. Varson 188, what do you think about Nebraska? I'm going to come back to that because we do have a list of title odds here, national title odds, that I do want to address. And Nebraska is on there, and we will discuss the Cornhuskers and Scott Frost here in a minute. MCD Sports 4, how do you see my Terps doing? How the Maryland Terrapins, obviously landing some big-time recruits around this time. Maryland's a team, that always. I think we discussed that in the last live stream. Maryland's a team that usually hovers around that 6 to 7 win mark. Occasionally they dip below that 4 or 5, but they've never been one of the Big Ten elites. They're going to go to one of those average bowl games. So this year, I wouldn't assume anything different. I would say maybe 7 wins. Once again, guys, we haven't, we pride ourselves, and one of the favorite things that we do here is our predictions. But it's still February. We're still working on those now. It's been a process. We work on this about year round up until the season starts in August. We don't just look at a schedule real quick right before we shoot a video and do a prediction. But I haven't looked too much into the Terrapins yet, but we'll be doing that soon. But I would say somewhere around 7 wins would be ideal, 6 or 7, and then that's what your spot is, 7-5, maybe even 8-4, and that would be huge for Maryland. That would be very, very big for the Terrapins. Let's see. Do I see Tate Martell playing in the 2019-2020 season? That was from George Stice. I don't see why not. I would be shocked if Tate Martell didn't play. And that's my take. That's immediately my take. I would be shocked if he didn't play. He's going to be a major force for this Miami offense. That's something that they had been missing these past couple of years under Mark Richt. Defense was good. Defense was great. Couldn't get any production on offense. Maybe Tate Martell's going to give him that extra push there. Mike Myrick, good to see you again. I know you were here a couple days ago when we did our first live stream. Go Noles, Florida State. Comic Dude 45, how do you see the Rutgers Scarlet Knights doing? He's dying to know. Well, man, like I said, I haven't dived too much into any predictions yet. You just got to get some better quarterback play, of course, out of Sikowski, first off. And that was to be expected. Wasn't he a freshman this past season? I mean, that's growing pains. But Rutgers definitely struggled. I think did worse than anybody was expecting. I think we thought maybe this was going to be the year they took a couple steps forward, maybe got around 4 or 5. Some thought maybe bowl eligibility, and they certainly didn't do that. They didn't live up to those expectations. So it's going to be, once again, I think a bit of a struggle for Rutgers, but like I said, still early. Wait till June and July. That's when it'll really tell. And usually we're somewhat accurate when it comes to that kind of stuff. Varsity 188. I know, as you being a big Miami fan, you would hope Tate Martell plays. Personally, I have no ties to Miami, but I want to see him play. So I have a lot of respect for Manny Diaz. And when Miami is good, it's fun for me. It's fun for, I think, the nation. A lot of people hate on Miami, dog Miami, but I like seeing them in contention for the college football playoff. That was a lot of fun, seeing Miami being back, even if it was just for a brief period of time. So I would hope he plays as well. And Mitchie 3 is back. Mitch Thayer, good to see you again. Nice to see that y'all have joined the chat. So we've got a decent number of people here right now. What we're going to dive into first is these quarterback transfers. And that was something we were going to talk about last live stream, and we never really got into it, but because we had such great discussion in the chat. But which quarterback transfer, and it's kind of brought up with Tate Martell, which quarterback transfer is going to make the biggest impact for their respective team? I mean, and you look at it, and you heard some big names out there. You got Jalen Hurts going to Oklahoma. You got Tate Martell going to Miami, assuming he plays. Justin Fields, the big-time recruit out of high school, I think it was a 5-star, played 1 year at Georgia, and obviously didn't play that much because he was behind, Jake Fromm. So he's going to Ohio State, replacing Tate Martell, who thought he was going to, put something out there on social media saying, why does Justin Fields think he can just come in here and take the job? He hasn't put anything to this university. And within a week, Martell was out. Didn't even fight for the job. Some could say Kelly Bryant going to Missouri, but right now I feel like Missouri's season is, all but lost. I mean, for those players and for those fans, it's very frustrating. If my school, was not eligible to go to a bowl game, it would almost seem pointless to be playing. None of those wins matter. I mean, you can play spoiler, you can try to win your conference games. It's big for those seniors that stuck around. But every win, if the way I used to phrase it was, you get a bowl ban, you go undefeated means nothing. And how bad that would hurt for a team to go undefeated. No, they could have missed out, had a chance at a conference title, college football playoff, national title, and it doesn't mean anything if they have a bowl ban. So Missouri kind of all but lost there. So Mitchie 3 says Austin Kendall is going to be the biggest one. And yes, Austin Kendall, of course, going from Oklahoma to West Virginia. another big time. Another big time interconference transfer, and sometimes they try to block those. Oklahoma tried to prevent Austin Kendall going to West Virginia, and that is a big time move because of Will Grier departing the Mountaineers, going to the NFL. West Virginia desperately needed a new quarterback. Now they have a new coach, and Neil Brown coming from Troy. This is going, and Neil Brown, an offensive-minded coach, he's got his quarterback. And West Virginia did lose quite a bit of production. Hasn't always been known for their defense. So, West Virginia is not going to be the big-time competitor in the Big 12 that they were this year. This was the year that if they wanted to win the Big 12, they had to do it, and nearly did. Had they beaten Oklahoma on that final game of the year, probably would have been playing for the Big 12 title game. Could have won it, but they weren't able to get the job done. So Austin Kendall certainly will be a big one. Varson 188 asks, where's Josh Jackson going? As you all know, Josh Jackson, the transfer from Virginia Tech, no one knows yet, but Mitchie3 says he heard he might be going to Florida State, and that would make very good sense. Now, once again, another interconference move there, going from the ACC with Virginia Tech, staying in the ACC, going to Florida State. But Florida State needs a quarterback. Bad. DeAndre Francois is out. They didn't sign one in this recruiting class. I think they've got, who is it? James Blackman, I think. Right now, he only played his freshman year back in 2017, but they need some help at the quarterback position. It would make sense for Josh Jackson to go there, and he would fit well, I think, in Willie Taggart's system. Yeah, and you're right. MCD Sports 4 said Florida State is a dumpster fire, and that is that's sugarcoating it. That's sugarcoating what Florida State is right now. But that would be a logical move for Josh Jackson. One, if he wants to play, and two, if he wants to make an impact. And Florida State would be very lucky to have him. George Stice, do I see Hunter Johnson starting the season at Northwestern? If so, do you think he will be effective? In my opinion, I think he's the most underrated quarterback in his class. I could see it very well happening this freshman year. Clayton Thorson was a very solid quarterback for the Wildcats, and of course, him being gone, Northwestern in desperate need of a new quarterback. Hunter Johnson, one thing we have to keep in mind with these quarterbacks, a lot of people, when they transfer, people freak out because they're like, oh, he's one, they could be young, and two, they're like, he's unproven, he hasn't played. Why do we want him to come be our starter? Here's the thing though, it's like learning the system. It's like, the way I like to refer to it is like learning to be the backup for Tom Brady, the best quarterback in the NFL right now. You look at the like Brian Hoyer is the backup for Tom Brady right now. And people will be like, who wants Brian Hoyer? Why would we want him? Well, he's getting a lot of knowledge and learning from the best. Clemson had some very solid quarterbacks there. Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence, and a very solid coaching staff. Hunter Johnson learned from that. Didn't play much. Did play in that Syracuse game when both Bryant was not playing and Trevor Lawrence got hurt. So he did get a little late game heroics there, even though they relied a lot on Travis Etienne there. But yes, I do think, moral of the story is Hunter Johnson will start at Northwestern. I would start him at Northwestern. At least give him a shot early on. You can make the change later. But the kid's got talent. You're right, he is underrated. Give him a shot. See what happens. And if it works out, you're going to have this kid for at least 2 years. Probably his whole 4 years, I would think. You're right, he's very underrated. And don't forget about Jacob Eason at Washington. We mentioned him earlier. He wasn't a part of this transfer class this year. He had to sit out last year. But, Jake Browning, one of the most prolific passers in Washington history, he's out. Jacob Eason has a chance to come in and make Washington feel like they never missed a beat. He comes in, continues the highlight. He played extremely well his freshman year at Georgia. And I truly believe that Jake Fromm would have had to transfer and probably never would have played had Jacob Eason not gotten hurt in that season opener a couple years ago. So he's going to play a major role for Chris Peterson in this Huskies offense. So be prepared for him to make some waves in the Pac-12 going up against a team like Oregon, who I think many people have pretty high up on their list as a potential favorite to win the conference. Washington, just because they lost a lot of production, is not out of the race quite yet. They have a very solid quarterback that's been waiting in the shadows. Overall, though, if I had to rank these guys, though, it would be, Jalen Hurts would certainly be up there. Justin Fields, those big names that we mentioned are going to be up there because they're going to play the biggest impact. Oklahoma needed a quarterback. Austin Kendall would have done just fine. But, of course, you're going to take Jalen Hurts. A guy that's been playing at Alabama, did extremely well at Alabama despite all the hate that he got. And once again, a dual threat quarterback. Nothing compared to Kyler Murray. But he's another dual threat quarterback that's going to get the job done in Lincoln Riley's offense. Justin Fields, big time for Ohio State, losing some big time quarterbacks. Dwayne Haskins, as we mentioned when we did it, we had a whole video. If you want to go watch it, a whole video dedicated to analyzing these quarterback breakdowns, these quarterback transfers, and we address a lot of this stuff and how Ohio State needs consistency at the quarterback position. How for the past couple of years they've been kind of spoiled because they've had some great quarterback play. Like Cardale Jones came in as a backup, won the national championship. You had J.T. Barrett, one of the best quarterbacks in Ohio State history. And then this past year, Dwayne Haskins doing phenomenal things for the Buckeyes. So, that's got to keep that in mind, Keep that in mind for a while, that Justin Fields coming in is probably going to do extremely well at Ohio State. No, that's really what Ohio State needed. And Ryan Day is their new head coach. I think is going to do a very nice job with him being a young quarterback. Go through a couple of comments right here. Christopher Smith, Virginia will win the Coastal this year. Every team in the Coastal has won the division the past 6 years except Virginia. This is their year where they nearly won it this past year. Blew it there towards the stretch. Virginia is a team, though, that I think I'm not going all the way and saying they're going to win the Coastal yet. Still, we got a ways till prediction season. But was a team that really hit their stride last year, did extremely well, won their bowl game in dominating fashion over South Carolina. Bronco Mendenhall, and they proved me wrong. I did not have much faith in Virginia last year. Bronco Mendenhall has this team going in the right direction and is once again making them a competitor in the ACC. So I am very, very excited to really sit down, break down Virginia's season, their 2019 season, predict them, analyze their roster, because I think they could make kind of sense of shockwave to the ACC. Maybe this is the year they won the Coastal. They were very close to winning it last year. The Coastal is not that competitive. So they do have a solid chance there. Prince 6'1", good to see you here. Always glad when you're able to join the chat. And Legalized Quack. That's a great username. Nice luxury having a national championship winning quarterback transfer on your roster. And he's exactly right. Anytime you can get a guy like that, that's huge. It's huge. Even if they, didn't play as big of a role, whether they did or not, it is very big. So he's exactly right. Which team do I think is going to win the Big Ten West from Varsity 188? Jeff Wilson says hi. Good to see Jeff back here. Big Ten West is kind of all up for grabs right now, as it was back this past season. It was a very tight race. So once again, I don't want to go. I can't explain all my secrets here on a live stream now. Come on, we still got a ways to go. But I would expect the Big Ten title race, period, both in the East and Western Division, going to be extremely close. People would jump out, on some divisions, say, Ohio State's just going to blow them out of the water, blow Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, those guys out of the water. We wouldn't go that far yet. The Big Ten's one of those conferences that, in each division, I think every year it is up for grabs. And I truly believe that. It's a very competitive conference overall. The SEC, you can, 9 times out of 10 bet on Alabama winning the West. And now, I would say 7 or 8 times out of 10 bet on Georgia winning the East. Every now and then Florida might upset them. But, the Big Ten is one of those conferences that you just never really know 100%. Got a lot of comments coming in through here. And we'll jump into our next topic here in a second. Prince 6'1". Do I think Texas could compete with Oklahoma next year for the Big 12 championship? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been saying that since the beginning. Texas, we talked about that at the beginning of the live stream, which teams we thought could be overrated. And I said Texas, is getting a lot of hype. And usually when these teams get a lot of hype, high expectations, they usually crash. But Tom Herman, I don't think is going to allow that to happen. It will be very telling for Texas, I think, in week 2 when they host LSU. If they beat LSU in Austin, then you're going to know that things are legit. If Texas wants to win the Big 12 this year, this is once again going to be the year to do it, because Oklahoma is still, I think, at the top, but it's getting very, very close. Texas beat Oklahoma last year in the regular season. That was with Kyler Murray, and I believe Kyler Murray's better than Jalen Hurts. Of course, Oklahoma got their revenge in the Big 12 championship when it mattered the most, but Texas is in a very good place to compete with these schools. They just can't afford to choke in games that they should win, such as Maryland or maybe Oklahoma State last year. So they need to be aware of that. But yes, I do think they can compete with Oklahoma. Let's see what else we've got in the chat here. Mike Myrick, do I think Florida State will have a bounce back season? I really think we will. I do think Coach Taggart gets Nick Starkel or Josh Jackson. That is what they need. They have to get a quarterback. If they want to get back to a bowl game, they are going to have to get a quarterback. They don't have one right now. One that I'm confident in, at least. Starkel would be great. Jackson would be great. Both would fit in the Taggart system, I think, or at least good enough to get you through this year, get to 6-6, 7-5, wherever you need to be, and then you recruit, and then maybe you can start a true freshman or somebody that you have a lot of faith in. But Starkel or Jackson both have not committed yet. Obviously, Shane Buechele, from the three that we had on our board a couple weeks ago, was the only one that has committed. Him going to SMU. So 2 solid quarterbacks still up on the board. That's who Taggart needs to be pursuing. Whether or not they will land them, that is the question. But I do think that if Florida State doesn't get back to a bowl game this year, Taggart's out. And I hate to say that. Most people are like, you should give people, more time, coaches more time. But this is Florida State we're talking about. One of the most, prominent and prestigious college football schools in history and in the country. Florida State can't afford to go to, not go to back-to-back bowl games. You miss out this year, you miss out next year, things are going to be looking really, really bad. Taggart's going to be out because they have to get a coach where they are competing in the ACC. Those are the expectations at Florida State. And if he can't get them there, then he's going to be out. They're going to have to find a coach that can. Jimbo was that man for a little bit. Jeff Wilson, do I think Florida's overrated? We talked a little bit about that in the last live stream. Like I said, it's easy to say someone's overrated. They're getting a lot of hype, and they just got showed out in the field. But Florida proved, I think, a lot of people wrong this season. Dan Mullen came in. They thought, okay, it's going to take some time to really rejuvenate that offense. And he came out and just shocked everybody. I think they go 10-3 with a win over Michigan, a blowout win over Michigan in their bowl game, in that New Year's Six bowl game. It would be very telling, that Georgia game, I'm telling you, in October. If they can upset Georgia in that game, I think they will win the SEC East. Now, of course, it's going to come down to quarterback play. Felipe Franks is going to be huge this season for the Gators. I think he was better more times than he was not. He gets a lot of hate as a quarterback, but I think he did better things for the Gators last season than he didn't. I think he definitely had some. He's still learning. This is Jim McElwain's offense was god awful. Couldn't get anything going there. Dan Mullen, we know the type of offense he can run. We saw some of the quarterbacks he produced as offensive coordinator at Florida, some of the quarterbacks he produced as head coach at Mississippi State, and I thought he worked wonders with Felipe Franks this year, as in his first year with the Gators. So I don't think they're overrated. I think they will stay relevant in the SEC East, relevant on the national stage. It's just going to be whether or not they can beat Georgia. That's going to be the biggest question. Prince 6'1" says that Willie Taggart is the worst coach in the ACC. It was a bad move. Christopher Smith, people sleeping on PJ Fleck in Minnesota. Now that's a very excellent point. Minnesota brings back some of the most production in the entire nation. Now, am I saying that they're going to necessarily be a contender in the Big Ten? No, not necessarily, but they're going to win some games this year. We saw how dominant they were in that bowl game win against Georgia Tech, sending out Paul Johnson out in the wrong way. So PJ Fleck is building something, rowing the boat with the Golden Gophers, brings back a lot of production. You're right, people are sleeping on them, and I can't wait to sit down and actually analyze their schedule because I think they could really surprise some people in the Big Ten this year. So that's a very excellent point by Christopher Smith there. Right, and Mitch, you're right. They barely made a bowl game. But, you see some major strides in a lot of these teams. First year as a coach, you miss out on the bowl game. Second year, you just barely. Third year, you bring back all that production. That's when you hit your stride. That's maybe when you win 8 games, 9 games, 10 games. That's when you really hit your stride. That's when we've said that all along. New coaches usually hit their stride in year 3. This is going to be year 3 coming up for PJ Fleck. And I think they will hit their stride and do extremely well. And Prince, I appreciate that. Prince 6'1". You guys make sure, and I'm going to reiterate it, back out of the chat for a second and smash that like button. It helps with YouTube analytics, and he's exactly right. And so thank you for pointing that one out. Definitely appreciate that. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but of course the super chat is enabled. Like I said, if you want to contribute to this page and help us out a little bit, feel free. We would definitely appreciate it. Any amount helps us out more than you guys know. So the super chat is enabled if you want to contribute to the channel. Like I said, we're working on new camera equipment, new microphones, things to get us going, especially come summer when we really start to hit our stride, getting prepared for the actual season. So the super chat is enabled if you guys want to hit that, as well as getting out of the chat for a brief second and hitting the like button. I can see we're already picking up a couple more now. So very good point there, Prince. Thank you. Emperor of Rome's back, my moderator. Hey, no worries. Glad to see you. Glad you were able to make it. And 20 Savage, my other moderator. Glad he's back here as well. Good to see you guys. Some very, very, very loyal fans, as always, and supporters. MCD Sports 4, what are the chances that Bama won't be in the SEC championship? I would say very slim. I don't see a team in the SEC West that can compete against them right now. Outside of going into the season, outside of, and believe it or not, I'm going to say Texas A&M. I think they're the toughest threat to Alabama because they are hosting the Crimson Tide. That is huge. Home field advantage, as you know, is very big for me. I'm not saying they're going to beat Alabama. Don't go tell everybody now that the Gridiron Experts predicting A&M to beat Alabama. No. But I think Alabama makes the SEC West or SEC Championship. I think their toughest test right now is Texas A&M. They host LSU. They host, I believe, Auburn. You know, Arkansas is not going to compete against them. Ole Miss won't. Mississippi State won't. It's Texas A&M and LSU's game right now, and they have to go to College Station. They get to host the Tigers, who do lose quite a bit of defensive production. Of course, LSU, though, usually is able to restack very well on that side of the ball. Oregon Ducks football and basketball, another very loyal supporter. Glad to see you here as well, doing extremely well. Just very busy. We got a lot of stuff going on this week, and that's why I was telling at the beginning of the chat, the plan, I'm going to, repetition, reiterating, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, check Twitter for the times. I put out on Twitter we were going to be going live around 6 tonight. I think the night times are usually what works best for everybody. It's usually when we get the most people in. Sometimes it'll be mid-afternoon, though. And we're going to try to stay as consistent as we can on these live streams. I know sometimes they won't work out always, but that's our plan. So, yeah, so that's, we're just trying to stay on top of that. It's been a pretty hectic week, and it's only a Tuesday. Need to be Friday. 20 Savage, who I have in the Big 12? Right now, Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma, Texas right now, just like it was this year. Those are the top two competitors. TCU might be on the way up. Baylor's showing some strides under Matt Rule. Saw that in the bowl game. They returned a lot of production. Oklahoma State might step things up a little bit. But right now, it's Oklahoma and Texas's league to lose. Those are the top dogs. Everybody else is kind of mediocre. I take that back. I will say Iowa State. Iowa State is definitely going in the right direction. Now, they did lose some star production. I think they lose Dave Montgomery. I think they lose Hakeem Butler. But Iowa State is going in the right direction, but I still think it's Oklahoma and Texas's league to lose. But right now, if I had to choose right now, I would give the slight edge to Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma based on experience, based on the talent they have coming back, and a solid transfer quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Do I watch college baseball? A little bit. College baseball is so much going on. They're not always on TV. College World Series, though, the tournament, and especially the College World Series in Omaha, absolutely, definitely catch up on that. So going down a little bit, like I said, this might be a somewhat shorter chat, somewhat shorter live stream today. We're already about the half-hour mark, man. Time flies. But one thing I wanted to address were the title odds, the national title odds that just came out. And depending on where you look, they might vary. This one's from one of the sports books in Vegas, I believe. But they're always fun to look at early on. We're in February. The national championship's not even a month, past us now. And Clemson is already the early favorites at 2-1. 2-1 odds to win the 2019 national championship. Alabama right behind them, or 2019-2020. Alabama right behind them at 5-2 odds. Georgia 8-1, and Ohio State 8-1. So those are your top four odds to win the national championship going into this next season. Now, I would agree with Clemson being at 2-1. If I had to choose right now, and I know it's extremely early, but that's my early favorite to win the national title because of how young this Clemson team is. Usually young in football is not good, but these young guns at Clemson are playing extremely well. We saw how bad they beat up on Alabama. Someone made a very good point one time saying, well, Alabama's going to come out with a vengeance. Now, this is not the drop-off of Alabama. Absolutely not. I think they're going to go to the SEC championship game. I would assume more likely win it. They've still got Tua. That's huge. Still going to have a very solid defense. It's a Nick Saban we're talking about, and Saban doesn't, let things like that what happened against Clemson happen more than once. That was something we had never seen before. But if they have to meet up against Clemson again, whether it's in the semifinal round of the college football playoff or if it's in the national championship again, who would you give the edge to? Right now, I'm going Clemson. Despite losing so many defensive starters, that offense is extremely, extremely dangerous. Going a little farther down the list here, we've got Michigan at 14-1 odds, Oklahoma at 18-1, Texas at 25-1. 25-1 odds for the Longhorns to win the national title game. Making the playoff is certainly a realistic possibility for the Longhorns. And then 3 straight teams here with 30-1 odds: Florida 30-1, Oregon 30-1, and Nebraska. And that was something that came up earlier, was what we thought on Nebraska. And I said, well, hold on, we're going to get to that later. Nebraska 30-1 odds, same odds as Florida, who just annihilated Michigan in the Peach Bowl, and Oregon, who is bringing back a lot of production, a very, very strong recruiting class. So why all the hype around Scott Frost and the Cornhuskers? A team that didn't even make a bowl game this past season. Now listen, Nebraska is going in the right direction. I have a lot of faith in Scott Frost, and a lot of people didn't when they started off the season. What was it, winless or with 1 win? They were looking just god-awful. Losing to Troy, losing to Colorado, things were not looking good for Nebraska. But Adrian Martinez at quarterback is extremely positive for the Cornhuskers. He's a young quarterback. Showed flashes of brilliance this season, and he's only going to get better over the course of this offseason. And Scott Frost, like I said, you got to get coaches 2 or 3 years. Usually 3 is a magic number. Do I agree that they're in the same, category as Florida and Oregon when it comes to odds? No, they should certainly be a lot lower than that. Nebraska is not going to jump from a team that didn't even make the postseason to potentially winning the Big Ten or even competing in the Big Ten championship game. Do not see that happening. But they will make strides. They will make a bowl game. I was very surprised to see Nebraska, though, with 30-1 odds in that same category as Florida and Oregon, teams that I think if they had to play Nebraska would beat them, and beat them fairly easily, I would think. And wrapping things up, Auburn and LSU, 2 SEC West foes, both with 60-1 odds. And then Florida State, Miami, and USC, all with 100-1 odds to win the national championship game. Florida State, pretty decent odds, actually, 100-1. I know that's a pretty big long shot, but could be worse for the Seminoles with the year that they had and the amount of people they have coming back, how they might be struggling, especially early on this season. So those are your national title odds for some of the major teams. Not all of them, but the ones that caught my eye, and the biggest odds, absolutely. But Nebraska, out of all those, a lot of those do make sense for the most part. Some may say Michigan should be higher, some may say Oklahoma, but Nebraska was the one that just caught my eye. Going through the comments here. Christopher Smith, Houston and Oklahoma are going to be very interesting. Absolutely it will be. Just because the fact that they did meet a couple years ago, Houston did beat the Sooners. Jalen Hurts still going to be very early on into his Sooners career. And Dana Holgorsen taking over as head coach at Houston. You know that they're going to have a pretty high-flying offense down there in Houston. So that is going to be a very, very fun game to watch. And Tony Savage even predicting a Houston win 35-31. Very, very early. But I would not be surprised to see Houston compete against some of these top dogs and maybe try to compete for a New Year's Six Bowl in Holgorsen's first year. Incoming 2:45, exactly right. Time does fly when you're having fun. Just as I mentioned, we're almost 40 minutes into this thing, and it feels like we just started a few minutes ago. Emperor of Rome, do I watch hockey? If not, why? Man, I tell you what, Christopher Smith, he's out of here. I appreciate the comment. You have a good one. Have a good night, and hope to see you back here on Thursday. But Emperor of Rome, I watch a little bit of hockey. I specifically watch it when the Stanley Cup playoffs roll around. Same with the NBA. The NHL and the NBA to me are very similar. It's a very long season, a lot of games that are being played. I can get into it once the playoffs hit. For me, I don't really have a diet. Like, I'm not passionate about a certain NBA team. I'm not passionate about a certain NHL team. But, I do like to keep track of the playoffs when that time's going to arrive. I was definitely into it last year with the Las Vegas Knights, the Golden Knights, trying to make a run and win it in their first year in the NHL. I was getting really hyped into that. Had no ties to them whatsoever. I just thought it'd be really cool to see them win it. And of course, they weren't able to get the job done there. But I believe it was Alex Ovechkin, and getting him a Stanley Cup. That's a pretty big deal. I was happy for the Capitals to get the win there. So I don't watch that much hockey, but when the playoffs roll around or getting close to playoff time, I certainly do pay a lot more attention to it. And I do enjoy watching it. I think I'd enjoy it more if I was actually at a game. I've never been to an NHL game at all. but I would love to go sometime just to have that experience. George Stice, how do I feel about the American or Alliance of American Football? We talked about this last live stream too on Sunday. I love it. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think this is allowing people to actually play the game of football the way it's meant to be played. You watch college football now, you watch NFL football now. There are too many penalties. And player safety, don't get me wrong, don't misconstrue my words. Player safety is of the utmost importance, and I do not want to see anybody get, horribly hurt. We have to keep our players safe. Otherwise, we're not going to have football. But some of the calls that we saw in the NFL, especially this year, absolutely ridiculous. And there are some things they have added to the AAF that, make sense and things that I think should be transitioned over to the National Football League and maybe even into college football. So I think it's a brilliant idea. I don't think anyone's going to get truly passionate about this league. Of course, it's a startup league. It's brand new. But no one's going to get into it as much as they do their NFL teams or their college football teams. But I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great opportunity for us as fans to have football up until about May. I think it's a great opportunity for those players to try to, once again, be playing football again, get a little bit of money, and potentially try to make a comeback and make a second run in the NFL. Because there were some big-time players, decent names that we all know. Trent Richardson, one of the biggest ones, running back for, the Birmingham Irons now in the AAF. Maybe he'll make a comeback there. You've got that. You've got Christian Hackenberg, former Penn State quarterback, Zach Mettenberger, a former LSU quarterback, Nick Novak, former kicker in the NFL. He's playing in this league now. So all these people are going to trying to make a comeback to the National Football League, and this is a very good place to start. It's enjoyable for us as fans. It's a good opportunity for the players. I have nothing against it. I'm excited to keep watching it. Even though I have no allegiance to any team, I'm just excited. I'm excited to watch. It's football, and it's legit football. Do I think a group of 5 team can make the playoff? That's from MCD Sports 4. That's been the talk with the UCF the past 2 years. The only way a group of 5, I truly believe that had Houston a couple of years ago finished the season undefeated, they would have made the playoff. Had a win against, they had finished the year before with a win against Florida State, opened the season with a win against Oklahoma, and then later on, I think, beat Louisville with Lamar Jackson. Louisville was very highly ranked at the time. So you win all of those games, but they choked. They ended up losing, I think, Navy, and then they lost to SMU. So had they run the table and gone undefeated, and then, of course, won the American Athletic Conference Championship game, I do believe they would have been in strong consideration for that 4th spot in the college football playoff. So it comes down to strength of schedule. You've got to schedule guys. You've got to schedule teams that are of pretty, high caliber. A team like an Oklahoma, your Alabamas, not saying you're necessarily going to beat them all the time, but you've got to schedule high-quality opponents, beat them, run the table in your conference, and hope maybe that a team in your conference kind of surprises people. Like UCF had a quality win at the time over Cincinnati, who was ranked. You got to hope some team in that group of 5 conference is going to step up, maybe get ranked, be undefeated, one-loss team, that when you beat them is a quality win that will look good on a resume. So it's going to be extremely tough for a group of 5 school to ever do that because they're just not going to have the same opportunities always as these Power 5 schools do. But it is possible because I truly believe Houston would have made it a couple of years ago. Comic Dude 45, do I think the group of 5 conferences should have a separate playoff system? It would defeat the purpose. That's to me, I feel like that's like the NIT in basketball. The NIT stands for not in tournament. You're good. You're just not good enough to be in the actual tournament. So, having a group of 5 playoff would be neat. It would be an interesting concept, but you're basically saying, hey, you're the greatest, you're the best school that's not a power school. It'd be almost like having 2 national. If they were into that, that'd be great. For me, though, I feel like that's almost like a diss. Like, hey, I won the group of 5 national championship while we've got the real national champions over here with the Power 5 schools. So it would be an interesting concept, but I don't think they should necessarily go that route. Put the highest ranked group of 5 champion in a New Year's 6 bowl game. Let them play one of the big schools. Put the rest in the bowl games where they deserve, and let whatever happens. But I don't think an extra playoff system is needed for that. It might be a cool idea, but I just don't think it would be worth it. Cameraman Edits. Good to see you again. Do I think the AAF teams should be in more states that don't have NFL teams? That's a possibility. States versus cities, though, Birmingham's got a team. That's big. Alabama, not having an NFL team. Memphis has got one. You know, they have Nashville, Tennessee, where the Titans are, but Memphis itself doesn't have a team. I know San Diego's got one. I know San Antonio's got one. The point, they don't want to go to a market that necessarily already has an NFL team, but they don't want to go to such a small market where people aren't going to go and they're not going to get a lot of support. So I know where you're going with that, but no, I think what they did was right. Maybe they expand. Maybe they add more teams. Maybe this league takes off and they want to add a couple more. Then that'd be great because there are definitely a lot of players out there that would jump at the opportunity to play on another one of these teams. Yeah, Colin Dude 45. The AAF is basically the NFL's rendition of Survivor Redemption Island. Yeah, exactly right. But if I was a player, I would definitely be okay participating in that. And Emperor of Rome, Birmingham Iron shut out their first opponent. Yes, they did. The Memphis Express. Trent Richardson looked good. Had 2 touchdowns, missed a couple big opportunity runs there, but he did look good. I think if anybody's going to get another second chance, it might be Trent Richardson. He did not play well at all in the NFL. There's something to be said for second chances. Mitchie 3, do I think Iowa State will make a New Year's Six bowl in the future, meaning like 1 to 3 years? The way they've been playing, I would say yes. But for Iowa State to make that New Year's Six bowl game, Mitch, they're going to have to finish in the upper echelon of the Big 12 standings. You know, and right now you're competing against Oklahoma, Texas, and you're always going to have that breakout team. Whether this year it's going to be Baylor, whether this year it's going to be, you know, who else is there? At Baylor, Oklahoma State, maybe TCU's going to be back. So there's always going to be that surprise team. Iowa State has to, you know, jump out to a good start, something that they weren't able to do this season, even though they finished strong. Jump out to a good start, beat some teams, pull some upsets, finish with probably, they're going to have to finish with 9 wins. And then hope they can kind of slip into a New Year's Six bowl contention. It's a possibility, absolutely. And they're certainly heading in the right direction, especially with Nolan at quarterback. Very excited to see how he does for years to come. Ziggy Thief. Michigan is the best. Good to see you. And he's already asked, what will Michigan's record be? Haven't even predicted them, man. Can't give that stuff away now. They're still going to be a contender in the Big Ten. That's all I'm going to say. We're not diving into records yet. Wait till June or July. Come back in June or July. Make sure you keep an eye on those. We haven't even, like I said, this is a process that we are continuing to study and work on. It's just going to take some time. But I promise you, June, July, and August, predictions every day. So we've almost hit the 50-minute mark here. We've addressed the quarterback transfers. That was a big hot topic. We've addressed the national title odds. Some big-time storylines there. We're going to try to come up with a couple other headlines that we can bring for the Thursday live chat, for the Thursday live stream, and that one will more than likely be during the day. I'm sure we'll be able to relate it to something Valentine's Day related. But if you guys have anything you want to add to that as well, like I said, this chat is what fuels these live streams, so we're always happy to hear from you guys and really get things going there. Emperor of Rome, what is the worst rule in both the NFL and college? NFL, pass interference at the spot of the ball. I'm not even going to skip a beat on that. So many games have been decided by... Actually, I want to say it's 2. So a lot of games have been decided on that pass interference call, where, you know, you go deep down the sideline, 20 seconds left in the game, you get a pass interference call at the 5-yard line, you're going to get the ball down there. That is extremely frustrating for the opposing team. And even if my team got that call, would I be happy if we were able to pull out the win? Absolutely. But you want to win the right way, and I think it just needs to be a flat-out 15-yard penalty rule. Now, would that allow teams, like if you go deep down the sideline with 20 seconds left, okay, I'm gonna yank his arm down, draw the pass interference call. That's gonna prevent them from scoring a touchdown. We'll just take the 15 yards, sure, but so be it. That, and now the quarterback rule, where you can't hit the quarterback basically anywhere except for like square in the chest. If you hit them below the legs, it's a flag. You hit them above, the waist, or you hit them above the ribs, it's a penalty. So that needs to change. Same in college. And I would say the targeting rule. You're good. All good. I would say the targeting rule is an issue as well. I would say that is by far an issue in both college and NFL. We've got helmets for a reason, and the like I said, player safety is of the utmost importance. The concussion studies that have come out are real. That's real, and it's a serious issue. But the NFL and college are both doing everything in their power to make the game safer and to help things out to make the game safer and prevent that. But it's going to happen. So I think that the referees really need to sit down and discuss, and the officials for both leagues need to sit down and discuss, how we're going to start calling targeting, because you got to be consistent. Because I've seen so many plays where one looks like targeting, and maybe if you flick the guy's helmet, that is targeting. The other one where you crack him in the head is not. So, Emperor Rome, that's a great question. I think a lot needs to change in both leagues, in both college and NFL. And that's my 2 cents on both of those, on the penalties and the rules there. Ziggy Thief, is this my job, and why am I wearing a suit? I guess you're new. I'm glad you're here. This is a side job, I guess you could call it. We don't get much money from it, but we do this as a hobby and to spread, basically our knowledge and our love of the game of college football. Our goal is to take what we are doing here and make it into a job down the road, whether that's with a major news station, with a major broadcast station, or anything like that, becoming an analyst down the road. Why are we wearing a suit? That's what we've been doing since day one. Gotta look professional, like to stand out. Where I went to high school, we had to wear a button down and tie every day. So this is perfectly normal for me. It's something that you're going to deal with in the real world, more than likely, especially if you become an analyst or somewhere in a high up official. So starting early. But no, it's not necessarily my full-time job. I wish. Maybe we'll get there. Jeff Wilson, do I think the Saints would have won if they called pass interference? Absolutely. I think everybody in the country knows that. The Saints get that call, Saints are going to the Super Bowl, and I think the Super Bowl is even better than what we had in Patriots and Rams, because the Saints offense would have put up more points than the Rams. Clearly, the Patriots defense was phenomenal, but they wouldn't have shut down the Saints the way they did, which would have forced Tom Brady and the Patriots offense to think I'd be a little more aggressive. I think the game would have been more exciting. I think the game would have been a little more high scoring, and I would have loved to have seen a Drew Brees, Tom Brady Super Bowl, because both these quarterbacks are slowly on their way out. Brady will probably be the first one to go of the two, but they're slowly on their way out of the league, and so I would have loved to have seen that. Two of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, and especially in the record books, going at it in Super Bowl 53. But unfortunately, we weren't able to get that. It was a bogus call, but the Saints did have other opportunities to win that game. That was not the reason they lost. But I do believe they get the call, they win the game. Eric Cartman, do I keep up with college basketball? Yes, I do. I do keep up with college basketball quite a bit. We don't discuss it a whole lot on here. If that's something you want to see, enough people want to see, that's something we can discuss, especially on these live streams. It doesn't always have to be dedicated towards football, sports in general. But come March Madness, we will have a special on that. We'll definitely be breaking down the bracket, kind of sharing our analysis, our predictions towards that. Now, I can't guarantee it's going to be right. Every year you've got some crazy team. Last year it was Loyola Chicago. What was it? Villanova, Michigan, Loyola Chicago, and there was somebody else, Kansas, or somebody else in the Final Four. So it's so unpredictable, but we love doing it. So definitely do keep up with that and keep things going with college basketball and a little bit of NBA, especially come playoff time. Jeff Wilson, do I think Ohio State's underrated? No. MCD Sports 4, got to see you go. Good to see you. Hope to see you back here on Thursday for another live stream. Really appreciate it. Ohio State underrated? Absolutely not. How can you call Ohio State underrated? They are consistently at the top of the Big Ten, consistently in the hunt for the college football playoff, for a national championship. There is no reason to believe they are underrated. So, no, I think they're still at the top of the Big Ten. Once again, will be in the hunt for the college football playoff this year, despite losing Urban Meyer, despite bringing in a new quarterback. They might have some struggles early on, but no, certainly not underrated. Never. And George Stice, good to see you. You'll definitely be watching that March Madness video. I'm glad. That'll definitely be coming out here. I mean, once the bracket's released, that's one of my favorite times of year when you can go, especially the opening Thursday, Friday, that round of 64, basketball starting at 11, going till 11 to 11 pretty much. It is so much fun to watch. It's one of my favorite times of the year for any sport. And yes, Jeff Wilson, you're right. They lost one game and they destroyed Michigan. That's why they're not underrated. People take Ohio State very seriously. So, and they will continue to be a contender, like I said, in the Big Ten and on the national stage. All right. So like I said, I thought it would be a little bit of a shorter chat. We got some good discussion, and it ended up being a little bit longer than we expected. George Dice, good to see you. We're about to wrap things up anyway, so appreciate the comment, and definitely we'll see you Thursday. For those of you that are still here, it'll probably be Thursday afternoon. I would expect somewhere around 1, but check Twitter, @GridironExpert. That's where we will be putting out the times for all of our live streams, and we're going to try to stay as consistent as we can on these live streams. So check that out. We will be back here on Thursday. Bring your questions, bring your topics. We're going to have a lot to talk about. We're going to have a lot of fun with it as well. And it doesn't always have to pertain to football. Stretch it to hockey, stretch it to soccer, basketball. Who cares? Baseball. Baseball's coming up around the corner in April. So we got a lot to talk about there as well. So we're excited to get back to it. Thank you guys for all watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe.